Welcome. If you've been following the financial news, you know the narrative. The global economy is cracking. But with so much noise in the headlines, we need to clarify exactly what we are facing. Are we looking at a standard recession, a deeper crisis, or a total economic collapse? Today we are going to break down exactly where we stand. Right now, the world feels on edge, and for good reason. If you look at the major indicators, three things stand out. First, market volatility is spiking. Second, global debt is piling up at an unprecedented rate. And third, we are seeing big waves of layoffs mounting across major sectors. These factors are creating a fragile environment. However, it is crucial to understand that not all downturns are the same. People often use the scary word collapse when they really mean recession. In reality, there is a spectrum of economic pain. It usually starts with a recession, can escalate into a crisis, and only in the most severe cases does it become a collapse. Let's define the difference. Let's start with a recession. This is a painful slowdown, but it is a known quantity. As you can see on this chart, the technical definition is simply 2 consecutive quarters of falling GDP. The reality on the ground is tough. We see rising unemployment and weaker production. But importantly, the system itself still works. Banks remain open and your currency holds its value. A collapse is a different beast entirely. This is where the system breaks down. We aren't just talking about a bad quarter. We are talking about the machinery of the economy stopping. In this scenario, banks won't lend or might not even open their doors. The government loses the ability to fund itself, and perhaps most dangerously, money itself becomes unreliable. History gives us clear examples of how these systems break. Look at the Great Depression in 1929. That was a banking and employment collapse where 7,000 banks failed and unemployment skyrocketed to 25%. Or consider Weimar Germany in 1923, a classic currency collapse. Hyperinflation made money so worthless that a wheelbarrow full of cash could barely buy a newspaper. So, how does a collapse actually begin? It's a chain reaction. Ironically, it starts during the good times with too much cheap credit and excessive borrowing. Then comes the snap, a trigger event that causes a sudden loss of confidence. This tips the first domino, typically a major financial institution needing a bailout, just like we saw with Northern Rock back in 2007. Once that first domino falls, the downward spiral accelerates. It creates a negative flywheel effect. First, lending tightens, which leads to loan defaults. As defaults rise, trust evaporates and credit freezes entirely. Companies respond by cutting investment and jobs. And when people lose their jobs, households stop spending, which only feeds the cycle further. On the ground, a collapse feels devastating. It's characterized by mass unemployment and shortages of essentials like food and medicine. As resources dry up, social tensions can explode into unrest. The pain is rarely shared evenly. The poorest suffer the most. In the worst cases, the ultimate escape is mass migration. Similar to how over 7.7 million people have fled Venezuela. The good news is that economies can be rebuilt from the ashes. This usually happens in 3 phases. First is survival, often through emergency bailouts like the IMF provided to Greece. Next is the reset, which involves restructuring debt, new regulations like the Glass-Steagall Act, or even issuing a new currency. But the core ingredient for any recovery is trust. Nothing works until trust in the system returns. So, where do we stand right now? The global picture is one of an economy that is tired and over-indebted. The IMF forecasts global growth at a sluggish 3.1%, while global debt to GDP has surged past 235%. These are concerning numbers, but it's important to state the world is not currently on the brink of a Weimar-style collapse. Looking specifically at the US economy, it is stressed, but still standing. If you look at the chart, public debt is hovering around 100% of GDP and rising, which creates significant long-term stress. However, the US has a massive advantage. It issues the world's reserve currency. Because of this strength, the data does not scream immediate collapse. That said, we cannot ignore that the market's warning lights are flashing. We have to ask tough questions. Is the stock market in an AI bubble? There is also hidden risk in private credit and significant household pain with record debt and rising delinquencies. The immediate risk here is likely a market shock closer to the dot-com bust rather than a Great Depression. In conclusion, what we are seeing are cracks, not a chasm, at least for now. There is no clear sign of a deep system-wide collapse visible right this moment. However, history teaches us that crises start small and can snowball quickly. The current path is precarious and is certainly not boosting confidence. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think concerns about an economic collapse are overblown? And which country or region do you think is most vulnerable right now? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. As a final note, if you found value in this video, please consider supporting the channel with a thumbs up. It would be greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to hit the bell so you don't miss future content like this. And with that, I hope you have a fantastic day.